guys, today we'll be looking at tactical stupidity. That is the ability to restrain yourself and never show what you actually know, even if it hurts your reputation. And without further ado, let's get started. 2.21. The master said, Ning Wuzi was wise when the moral way prevailed in his state and acted like a fool when the moral way did not prevail in his state. He could be equaled in being wise, but unequaled in being a fool. Alright, so first, Ning Wuzi was a high-ranking official in the state of Wei, and he was living in a very politically turbulent kind of time period. And so he had to deal with a lot of things like corrupt rulers. And for example, when the Wei did prevail in the state in one moment, but the next it did not. And we'll examine how it is that he handles these situations by acting not as smart as he really was. So Confucius is saying in this passage that when the moral way does prevail, when the state is at peace and everyone's on the right path, then he is really intelligent. And he was very sharp and active and clever. And he used that intelligence to both build and improve the state. But when the moral way did not prevail, for example, when the state was in chaos and there were rebellions and maybe there's a tyrant, then he pretended, I guess, to be really slow, as in mentally slow, and he acted kind of not really as smart, stupid maybe. Confucius considered this to be smart, even if it does sound counterintuitive. So the reason why Ning Wuzi did this was because if he was still the bright, intelligent person that he was before, then he might be used or forced to help the tyrant or corrupted officials, which would both harm him and the state. So by acting really like a stupid old man and seemingly providing no use, then he has successfully evaded being corrupted himself and also helping the state become corrupted. And another thing is that if he resisted the idea of helping them, and if he openly and directly rebelled and refused this kind of rule, then he would be executed. So being smart and being a loud critic would mean to the corrupted officials that he was a threat, so he would be executed, which we as Westerners would see very often as the protagonist who is serving justice. But Confucius argues that the hero would likely perish if he defied the tyrant. So by acting stupid, Ning Wuzi kind of makes himself appear less threatening and therefore making him have the ability to survive for a longer time, or at least until the Wei is returned. And the part that says unequaled in being a fool, Confucius isn't criticizing Ning Wuzi for acting this way. He is saying that nobody can match the act that he put on, because if you merely pretended, you will eventually slip up. And plus, you'll probably get tired of it after a while, and you would probably unconsciously or maybe consciously just stop doing it, and then you would get caught. So he had to suppress himself, becoming so mentally slow that no one really expected anything out of him anymore. And so they would leave him alone. So essentially, he had the mental discipline to suppress himself until it was safe to be wise again, even if other people thought of him as not as intelligent as he used to be. And I have to acknowledge, and I guess Confucius also does acknowledge, that it's not the gentleman's ultimate goal to sit around and do nothing and just wait. And that's kind of what Ning Wuzi was doing, but also not really. And this is where timeliness comes in, which is something that Confucius really emphasized. So, for example, if a farmer planted seeds in a frozen wasteland or on a frozen wasteland in the middle of a blizzard, then although he worked hard to put the seeds in there, he's not going to get a result because, well, the act is really foolish because the seeds will die because it is the middle of the winter and the land has to be cleared before planting the seeds and the ground is frozen. So he won't have any crops to harvest, no matter how hard he worked. So even if the whey never returned, then Ning Wuzi would still keep up with the act, even though he's not doing anything, solely because it really won't benefit anyone. So that's because if all the good and the intelligence and the gentlemen, those kind of people, if all of them were executed, then who would help the state heal once the whey has come back? Moreover, ren, or benevolence, or humaneness, means doing the most good that you can in your current circumstances. So if the most good you could do right now is staying alive to prevent a worse official from taking your position, then that is your duty. Ultimately, acting humbler or more ignorant than you really are will sometimes be necessary in order to protect yourself. So don't fall for the hero serving justice thing every single time. You have to consider your circumstances, because sometimes that is wise, but sometimes in certain circumstances that is also the worst thing that you can do. And yeah, that'll be all today. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!